Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. Yesterday's scenes of violence at Ramjas College were not just depressing, but a forceful reminder of the way intolerance in the name of nationalism can provoke the worst of human behavior. But sadly, this isn't new. Last year we saw it at JNU and also Hyderabad University. Tonight, this dismal and disheartening story will be the focus of our discussion. Can there be any justification for what's happened? How should this problem of student violence be tackled, and whose responsibility is it? My guests are the well-known sociologist and columnist Shiv Vishwanathan, senior Supreme Court lawyer Sanjay Hegde, the RSS supporting author Sandeep Singh, former DCP Delhi Uday Sahay, who will join us shortly from Patna, former Vice President JNU Students' Union Shehla Rashid, and the national media convener of the ABVP, Saket Bahuguna. Saket Bahuguna, let's start with the initial cause of the problem. The ABVP's protest against invitations to Umar Khalid and Shehla Rashid to participate in a Ramjas College seminar on cultures of protest. Now, a university is a platform for exchanging ideas, expressing opinions, debating, discussing, and if need be, differing and disagreeing. Your refusal to allow students to speak damages not just the very concept of a university, but it also seriously damages the quest for knowledge, which is what defines student life. So let me put a very simple question to you. How do you respond to the view that the ABVP has ashamed itself by its behavior?
See, first of all, let me just clarify a fact that you said that ABVP stopped Umar Khalid first. First of all, it was the democratically elected. Hello?
Yeah, carry on talking.
It was the democratically elected Students' Union of Ramjas College which first went to the principal and said we cannot allow anti-nationals like Umar Khalid in our college, and then ABVP joined them. Of course, we are proud of the fact that we stopped Umar Khalid from speaking in Delhi University. We will not allow such anti-nationals to speak in any university in India unless they are proven not guilty.
Just a moment. What do you mean proven not guilty? Just a moment. In a democracy, you have the onus of innocence on your side. You have to prove them to be guilty, not prove to be not guilty. What sort of jurisprudence are you dreaming up?
This case is special because we have seen Umar Khalid shouting anti-India slogans in JNU campus.
Forgive me, you may have seen him, but a whole year has gone by and he still hasn't been charged in the charge sheet by the police. And anyway,
why don't you go and ask
you are not judge and jury. I want to come back to my question. My question is a simple one, Saket Bahuguna. A university is a platform for exchanging ideas, for expressing views, for agreeing to differ or disagree. The very quest for knowledge requires you to be open to alternate views. Why are you not open to those?
Slogans is not knowledge generation. Attacking the unity and integrity of a country, especially India, is not knowledge generation.
Do you know something? Let me teach you something, Mr. Bahuguna. Are you aware of the fact that in his inaugural maiden speech in the Rajya Sabha in May 1962, when India was virtually going to war with China, it was such a tense situation, Annadurai in his maiden speech called for self-determination for Tamil Nadu. And in Parliament he did that. And are you aware that the Prime Minister of the day, when asked, are you going to stand up for this, said very simply, he has the right to say what he wants. And frankly, it doesn't matter to the people of India. But it does matter that he has his say. That is a lesson you should learn, Mr. Bahuguna, rather than impose your views and your intolerance in a university.
Please don't teach me any lessons here. I have come to debate, not to learn from you. And we have an opinion, we have an organization, the largest student organization in India. We are voted to power not just in Delhi University Students' Union, but all across the country. From Assam to Gujarat and from Jammu University to down south in Hyderabad, everywhere.
All right.
Students are supporting ABVP. We are the largest student
and that,
organization
therefore,
in
you
India.
believe gives you the right to be intolerant. Let me bring in Professor Vishwanathan at this point. A second worrying aspect is that after ABVP, or as he says, Ramjas College Students' Union to begin with, and then ABVP protested and threatened to disrupt the seminar, allegedly even pelting stones, the Ramjas College authorities withdrew the invitation to Umar Khalid and to Shehla Rashid. And this is the explanation the college principal Rajendra Prasad gave PTI, and I'm quoting him, "We decided to cancel participation of these two students. It's not that we do not advocate freedom of speech, but it had to be done keeping peace and harmony of the campus in mind." Was cancelling the invitation, in your eyes, as an academic, understandable, or did the principal let down the college by failing to stand up for the right to invite whoever they want?
I think the principal let down the college, the university, and the democratic system. Because freedom is not an abstract thing. Freedom is what you defend in practice. He should have stood up for dissent, because democracy is not about majorities. It is about dissenting imaginations and how they are protected in the plurality of a university. I'm shocked by what the ABPP representative says. In fact, I don't think he has a vision of the university. He has a vision of a cadre-based political party. They can survive on ideology. The university survives on ideas, on debate, on plurality, on hospitality of ideas. I don't see the spirit of that in the discussion so far. And the very fact is saying, we came here to debate with you, not learn, breaks one of the fundamental codes of the university.
Uday Sahay, at this point, I want to quote to you from Umar Khalid's Facebook post. And I'm doing so because you are a former DCP Delhi, who knows better than anyone both the responsibilities and the moral duty of the police. This is what Umar Khalid has written on his Facebook post. "The police told the organizers that it will not protect me or them from any attack by ABVP, and the organizers will be held responsible for any violence by ABVP." Now, if that's correct, and by the way, the police behavior on Wednesday, when they either stood by or themselves attacked journalists, suggests that it is correct, then my question is simple. Isn't this a terrible dereliction of responsibility by the police?
Not really. Not really, because I'm told that police had intelligence that if a speech is allowed, it may lead to reaction in the college, and already there was some kind of a vitiation on this topic in the hostel itself. Based on that intelligence, naturally they wrote what they wrote.
Can I put this to you, Mr. Sahay? Going by the logic of your argument, any time you have intelligence that if you permit some speech there will be trouble, you will deny freedom of expression. You will always put public safety or your alleged public safety and security ahead of freedom of speech. Whereas I think the Supreme Court regulations in the matter is that at all costs freedom of speech must be protected, and it's the duty of the police to ensure public security and safety is maintained. You're turning that logic on its head.
Not really, because end of the day you are trying to create a balance. You know, the freedom of speech on the one side and the possibility of breach of peace on the other side is a balance which all policeman tries to achieve.
But
at
where's
times
the
they
balance
succeed
here,
in doing
sir?
that.
You haven't achieved a balance if you deny people the right to speak because you refuse them the security when they do. That's not a balance. That's tilting entirely one way.
I would put it like this. You ask for permission to the police. Why do you ask for permission? You ask for permission because police may have some opinion on the matter, and when they say that no, it is not possible to give the permission.
We had permission for the march.
You say that you are...
We're not talking about the march, we're talking about the speech. But you're right. Let me tell you one thing. The
No, for the
organizers
speech-
may have approached the police for security, because when such things happen, a certain measure of security is a good precaution for any organizer to take. I would imagine dutiful policemen would provide that security because above all else they would believe upholding the right of free speech is their first duty. Here we have policemen denying people the security needed to speak freely because of this belief that the police can't secure the situation.
Can I ask a minor question?
Just a moment. It seems to me that you're abdicating your duty to provide security and safety, and instead you're giving in to threats from people who are hooligans and gundas, and it's the wrong way around.
I think it's the other way around, in the sense that actually police is trying to protect the life of two possible speakers for the occasion who are asking for permission, or the organizers. They are not that they are, hell-bent upon stopping them in not giving a speech. They are just trying to ensure that when they speak, it doesn't cause trouble. And if there is a possibility of trouble, if they sense that, they have a right to say that, sorry, it is not possible to give the permission.
One of those two people whose lives you say the police was protecting is with me today. Now, Shaila Rashid, PTI has reported that Omar Khalid was going to speak on the war on Adivasi areas, which happens to be his PhD subject.
Right.
Why that should lead to provocative remarks that in any way inflame opinions, I at least can't understand. But what would you have spoken about? Would you have touched on subjects that would provoke? Would you have said things that would whip people like Mr. Bahuguna and the ABVP into such a fury that they would react violently? Would you have provoked a situation, or would you have talked calmly, intelligently, objectively and thoughtfully?
Like we always do. My presentation was on the dominant knowledge systems and whether knowledge can be apolitical. And I have written articles in Indian Express on this, how knowledge is male stream, how it is male biased, how it's patriarchal, how it's everything. I have written about this, and it has never caused a riot. Now the people who do actually incite a riot, people who do actually make hate speeches against minorities, they are sitting in our union minister, they are sitting in our union ministry. There are ministers who are saying that Muslims are haramzada.
Let's not make this party political.
Just give me a second.
I'm going to interrupt you. Just as I interrupt others, let's not make this party political. I know you may have certain access to grind, but this is not a moment to do that.
Let's just say tomorrow.
I think the audience wants to understand the situation.
Tomorrow there was a seminar happening in Ramjas College or some other college in Delhi University, and I threatened that I'm going to self-immolate myself in front of the seminar. So what will the police do? Will the police arrest me, or will the police arrest all the people who are in the seminar? Now here, the gentleman who is representing the police, I would like to inform him that the initial, problem of the ABVP was against Umar Khalid, and the police actually went on to clarify, and this is reported in newspapers. The police actually asked the ABVP people, क्या आपको शैला रशीद से भी problem है? इनको रखें या इनको ना रखें? The police were bargaining with the ABVP. Now the gentleman here is claiming that he was saving our lives.
And the most important thing...
The thing is, neither Umar nor I, we did not go inside Ramjas College.
But the most important thing you're saying...
They still couldn't protect us.
I'm interrupting you because I think this deserves to be underlined. You would actually have spoken on the male dominance of news and the way in which... Of knowledge. A subject which you've written about in the Indian Express, a subject that has never created a violent response when you wrote, and is unlikely to do so now.
Yes. And even,
and
even
therefore,
after,
and therefore,
if the police's claim,
and therefore,
just one small point.
Just let me finish because this is important. And therefore, any apprehension that you would have provoked violence is mistaken. Let me bring in Sanjay Hegde. Hold on a moment. I want to bring it after and I'll come back to you. Sanjay Hegde, let me put a hypothetical situation which incidentally is one of the reasons given for action. It's not that hypothetical therefore. Even if some students were shouting slogans in favor of freedom for Kashmir and Bastar, and that's what's been alleged in the papers today, and these are clearly slogans that work the ABVP into a state of absolute fury, I want to quote Fali Nariman, who's written that whilst it may be distasteful or even morally offensive, to be anti-Indian is nonetheless not a criminal offense, and it's not, he says, sedition. In fact, he says it's definitely not sedition. Do you agree with Mr. Nariman? Or do you agree that these slogans are indefensible, anti-national and intolerable, which is Sakit Bahuguna's position?
There were no slogans raised.
Just a moment, let him answer.
There were no slogans raised.
I entirely agree with Mr. Nariman, and the law always is that the answer to a speech is another speech.
Yeah.
If you think that certain slogans are anti-national, please raise your nationalistic slogans. You have no right to resort to violence. You have no right to deprive an Indian citizen of his right of free speech. And I've been listening here with quiet fury at that policeman on your panel who says, look, we have a right to give permission. Sorry, sir, speech does not exist with the, upon permission of the police.
Right.
If we apprehend violence, we can stop it. And we apprehended violence. That kind of logic is the same logic which says that a woman can't go out into certain areas because possibly in the night she could get raped, there would be a policing problem. Everything in this country, as far as standing by the law, is given a go by the policeman, because the policeman does not believe that the constitution is his master. The policeman believes that whoever is the home minister is his master.
Sanjay Hegde,
that is where the problem lies.
Sanjay Hegde, I want
one more
to put
thing
you
that a policeman father told a lawyer's son, which was reported to me. Just 1 minute. The policeman father said that there could be no riot in India if the police were not on the side of the rioters.
Right.
I want to put you, for your comment as a leading lawyer, the position taken by Mr. Uday Sahay. He says that the police have a duty to maintain a balance between law and order and public security and freedom of speech. I said to him that in fact their duty is to provide security so people can speak freely,
Right.
not to be frightened by people who threaten law and order as a way of preventing others speaking. Was I correct, or was Mr. Sahay correct?
You were absolutely correct, and in every riot situation, the winning rioting party has one slogan: अंदर की ये बात है, पुलिस हमारे साथ है. That is what happens, and when the policeman forgets that he is a creature of the law, under the law, charged with maintaining the law, and he says that I am not going to stand by the law, but I am going to maintain a thanedar order by virtue of the danda. This is what happens, because whoever has the danda, whoever has the more dandas, the policeman sides with him.
Okay. Sandeep Singh, in contrast to the intolerance of ABVP students, I want to remind you of the famous Oxford Union debate of 1933, at a time when Europe was threatened by Hitler and everyone believed that war was imminent. In that year, 1933, the students of the Oxford Union overwhelmingly supported the motion, under no circumstances will this house fight for king and country. And no one will deny that the British people were unhappy. No one will deny the government was unhappy. More importantly, Hitler was thrilled. But absolutely no one beat up the students. No one banned the students. Even when they didn't like it, they respected the right of the students to take this deeply offensive position. Incidentally, 7 years later, many of those students laid down their lives fighting for Hitler. That's the difference between accepting the right of students to say what they want and the intolerance we saw yesterday.
Yeah, what you said happened way back in 1939. But today, if you look, the stone pelting is the latest fad, which Umar Khalid and Sheila Rashid and the other liberals promote. So I'm not surprised if
Where do we promote it?
learned it.
Where do we promote it? Can you show me a post where I have promoted it? Can you show me a speech? Don't lie and don't attribute things to me, okay? I'll put a defamation case on you for saying that. Where did I promote stone pelting?
Yeah, please do it. Please do it. Because if you
are
listen
you
to me
trained to lie?
properly,
What's your problem?
the problem
Why
with people like you is that you don't have time to listen.
Shella, you
You
made
want
your
to
point
respond
that
and react.
misleading people. But are you suggesting, Mr. Sandeep Singh, in your argument, that the behavior and intolerance of the ABVP is somehow justified by something that Sheila Rashid or Umar Khalid have done, and therefore a tit for tat somehow makes things okay?
I'm saying that every time there is a stone pelting in Srinagar, it's promoted that it's the latest fad. And asking people to withdraw invite is another latest fad. We have seen Tariq
I am
Fatah
not allowed to talk about Kashmir. What do you know about Kashmir on Kashmir?
Sheila, please, you proved your
I
point.
would tell him
I'm
about
not
Kashmir if he had the nerve to
surprised
listen
that
about
Sheila, you
Kashmir.
proved your point now,
because that's
please.
the latest fad.
You
Mr.
first
Sandeep,
get the heart to hear about Kashmir, then I'll tell you about Kashmir.
This is not a discussion about Kashmir, and I want to put that point to Mr. Sandeep Singh. How on earth do you justify the intolerance of students in Delhi over what happens in Kashmir? They're not connected, and any attempt to connect them is to make a farcical and false connection.
You just gave me an example of Oxford of 1939 of Second World War to connect with the ABV thing.
Hang
If
on
that
a
is
second.
fine,
I
then
was
what's happening
proving
in
to
my
you
country,
how,
it's
when
absolutely
students
fine.
take offensive stands, enlightened societies actually accept that right even if they don't like it. Whereas here, Students, when they don't like
because
other
that is
students
what
saying something,
students have been
become
taught,
intolerant
you
and
know.
don't let them speak.
No, but this is what the students have been watching it day in and day out. If you protest violently in JNU, that is acceptable. But if ABVP does it, then it becomes a problem. The example we have set for ABVP has just learned from them and they have picked it up. And I congratulate them, they have done it well.
So you're saying
You
that
can't invite a
ABVP
person
has
who's
learned
facing
from
a sedition
Shaila
charge to
Rashid
speak
and
in a
Umar
college.
Khalid, and therefore ABVP is simply emulating them. Is that your position? Because if that is, I'll get Shaila to reply. That is his position.
No, he is insinuating, he is attributing things to us that he doesn't know about. Now he is saying violent protest in JNU is okay. When did violent protest in JNU happen, boss? There are people coming all the time, every day. You know, let me give you a small example. There is a singer called Abhijit. He made a very controversial comment to a journalist on record. He said that India is a third-class country and said Bharat Mata ki, and then left it at that, basically giving a gali against the nation. He is invited by the ABVP to JNU. They invite Tariq Fatah all the time, although he could be, you know, branded as a very controversial and whatever speaker. We never do anything.
Okay.
We quietly, you see, even if we have to protest,
let's keep these answers short. You've made your point. You've established that in fact this point is wrong. I'm going to bring in Saket Bahuguna. Saket Bahuguna, there is a very famous saying.
To counter what Shaila just said.
Just a moment, I'm
been
giving you a chance.
JNU for 5 years.
Listen to my question and then you can speak, Saket. There is a very famous saying, usually attributed to Voltaire, but it's not confirmed Voltaire actually said it. I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. That position, by the way, is 100% the opposite of the position you and the ABVP have taken. I've got a very simple question. On what basis can you claim that you're right and Voltaire is wrong?
See, what Voltaire said in 18th century, I think right now, if you see, we went to the student community in DUSU elections with asking for a mandate to fight against anti-national activities in JNU and to fight against them in Delhi University. And the students of DU have given us a mandate to fight against such anti-nationals on campus, and we are doing our duty. We are working according to the mandate given to us by the student community, and we believe that freedom of expression should be given to everyone.
Who defines what is anti-national? You're begging the question by this grandiloquent claim that you've got a mandate, right? Who defines anti-national?
Freedom to
expression.
Anand Rai, in his maiden speech in the Rajya Sabha in 1962, over 50 years ago,
and the kind of slogans that these people, their supporters raised in Ramjas
separatism,
on the 21st,
and Nehru, the Prime Minister, did not consider it anti-national.
This cannot be tolerated. This should not be tolerated at all.
I want to put a small question to Saket. There is a BJP MLC.
Sir,
Saket, one small question.
It's only fair.
No, there's a BJP MLC.
Shaila, it's only fair. Shaila, it's only fair. He should speak without interrupting him.
Well, why doesn't he go and protest against the ISI links that BJP has?
Please, do not interrupt him. Go ahead,
Threatening the JNU professor that Ramdev should not be allowed in JNU. Who is she fooling?
Did we throw stones? Did we threaten violence? No, we wrote a letter.
You did not allow
there's a
Ramdev to speak in
difference
JNU.
between writing
You
a
did not allow
letter, which ABVP has every right to do. ABVP has every right to protest. ABVP has every right to
Will my
write a
producer
letter.
get out of this?
You don't have the right to
I do not
protest
want to get
stones.
lost in a war of words
You
between
don't
the
have to
two.
pay
Shaila,
his right
I
to
do not
watch
want to
us.
get lost in a war of words between the two.
You
I'm going to put your
people
mic down as well.
create
Can you put down Mr. Bahuguna's mic? I'm going to come to someone slightly more informed, definitely more able to put the situation in perspective for us than either of these two students. Forgive me, I'm not being pompous. Shiv Vishwanathan. Mr. Vishwanathan, why is it that exaggerated patriotism becomes an excuse for intolerance and even violence? Because the truth is, that's happened down the ages. As far back as 1775, Samuel Johnson said, patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. That's as true today as it was then. But why does patriotism and nationalism so often lead to intolerance, so often lead to violent behavior? It happens in all countries, by the way.
Yeah, but let's make a difference between nationalism and what I call the patriotism of the nation state. These people are not nationalists, because if you look at the national movement, it was a plural project. There were debates in it. Englishmen participated in it. We had a theory of the West. We wanted to rescue the West. What these people are talking about is the standardization and policing of the nation state. Look at his language. Forget his motivation. Here is a man who says, I was elected to a party Therefore, I can destroy the integrity of a university. He says, my party gives me a mandate. What happens to the university as a way of life?
Well, actually, to be honest, he claims that the students who elected him gave him the mandate.
Yes, but students are not the only part of the university. The university as an institution is a wider vision of plurality.
So then, broaden this to the question I asked, why is it that patriotism or nationalism so easily becomes an excuse for intolerance and violence?
Because it can turn majoritarian, it can turn coercive under the impact of the state. In that sense, nationalism is always potentially anti-democratic and genocidal. We see that clearly here in a small way. The language of the ABVP doesn't allow or even accommodate any sense of difference or intolerance.
Okay.
Demonizing these people doesn't solve that problem.
Sandeep Singh, you're a nationalist, you're proud to be one, and you have every right to be proud of that. Let me put a simple question to you. Mahatma Gandhi, the father of our nation, was perhaps the greatest patriot and nationalist there's been. No one would deny that. Do you believe Mahatma Gandhi would be proud of the intolerance and violence the ABVP has resorted to? Would he approve of the way Umar Khalid and Shaila Rashid were treated, no matter how offensive what they had to say might have proven to be? Would Mahatma Gandhi have approved of this?
These are the people who killed Gandhi.
Please, let him answer.
Mahatma Gandhi was right at his time. He may or may not be right today. The kind of violent world we live in and the kind of violence people of left ideology promote, I don't think Gandhi is relevant in that. They need to be answered back in the same language in which they understand. Because we see day in day out killing of people in Kerala, in West Bengal, and police remain spectator. So what ABVP is doing is that they found out what is the need of the hour, and they are doing it. So I'm sure Mahatma Gandhi would have agreed to it. That is what is need of the hour, and ABVP is doing it.
So you're saying that Mahatma Gandhi,
God,
his values, his beliefs, his principles are irrelevant today? Because that's what you're about
But
to
he's also justifying
not
murder.
relevant in all
Shaila,
the
don't get
situations.
back in the box.
You know, all thoughts are not relevant at all points of time in the world. You know, they
It
do
might
change
be
with
true
time.
for you today.
And that,
Thank
Sorry?
you. You've just written off Mahatma Gandhi. Isn't that amazing? You just said to me that the values that we uphold as a nation so dearly, the values that in a way were the forefathers of the nationalism your ABVP colleagues are so proud of, are irrelevant today. Isn't that a terrible contradiction?
no, because if today's the violence has become the fashion, you know, we keep seeing it happening in Kerala, in West Bengal, in Jammu Kashmir. So what's the wrong if ABVP has learned that and is using the same medium? If you think so, they are using that.
We have a judiciary.
Because we
come
keep
back?
promoting
We have a
that, you know.
judiciary. Who
but
will
it-
decide? Will they
Shaila,
decide
Shaila,
within
Shaila,
half
Shaila,
panchayat?
Fine.
Shaila, I'm going to come back
Wow,
and
this
get
is
more
unbelievable.
perspective.
He just justified murder.
Shaila, you mustn't keep interrupting people. It's not fair. It's not right, it's not fair. Do you believe that Gandhi has become irrelevant? That the times have so changed? That the father of the nation, the values that define our nationalism are now irrelevant?
Gandhi is relevant today. He was relevant yesterday. He'll be relevant long after the ABVP is forgotten. Let's be very clear that there is what they're look at what the argument they're offering. Gandhi would listen to them patiently, but what they're saying is what we decide is what is democratic. That won't do. This is not to argue for the CPM's killings in Calcutta, but what I'm trying to say is one violence doesn't justify another violence, because the answer to violence is not a duplication or an increase in violence.
We're going to take a break at that point. When we come back, we're going to turn to the second aspect of this deeply distressing last 2 days at Ramjas. The behavior of the police. The way people like Shaila Rashid were manhandled, literally pulled by the hair. The way the police stood by and actually let students beat each other up, refusing to actually interfere. The way the police themselves, as the Times of India reports on its front page, beat up journalists, sometimes viciously. How does the police justify it? Why does this happen? What can we do about it? Join me in a moment's time for the answers to those questions. Welcome back. You're watching To The Point. We turn now to a second depressing aspect of the last 2 days at Ramjas College, the behavior of the police. I want you, Shaila, to give me briefly an account of how the police treated you.
See, the police yesterday provided complete cover to the ABVP. I wasn't there on the 21st, but I was there yesterday. And we had declared that we will have a peaceful march from the Ramjas
But
gate
what
to
did they do?
Maurice
Tell me
Nagar.
what they did.
See, the ABVP throughout the way, while we were trying to take out the march, they were throwing stones, they were throwing bricks, people were injured in the head. We kept requesting the police to detain these guys, contain them in some manner, do whatever they have
Were
to.
you physically manhandled by
Yeah,
the
of
police?
course. I was. See, first I was dragged by a mob of ABVP people, boys and girls. They dragged me by the hair, and I was getting beaten up everywhere, and I thought that I would be killed. And after that, we kept asking the police to intervene, and the policewoman actually grabbed me by the face, and she inflicted the same kind of violence that the ABVP did. And all this was completely unprovoked.
Uday Sahay, it's not just Shaila Rashid who's telling us what happened to her. The Times of India today on its front page has graphic accounts and several disturbing pictures of the way the police have, and I'm quoting the paper, slapped, punched and kicked journalists. The Hindu, again on its front page, says that for a lot of the time when the police weren't themselves being violent, they were mute spectators whilst the ABVP was doing the violence.
Yeah.
Do you justify the police behavior? Do you excuse it? Or would you say this behavior by the police was reprehensible?
There are two things which I would like to put across. First of all, let me make it clear that I am not representing Delhi Police here on this platform, nor am I representing the North District of Delhi Police, which was there on the ground. Nor do I represent the ground zero, because I was not there. So therefore, to presume that whatever I am saying on this matter is a representation of what police feels would be erroneous. Number two, there are three imageries which I see in the newspaper. The imagery one, where the students are fighting. Who is beating what? You can't make out from the still photo. So that's imagery one. Imagery two is when you find the students pelting stones. And these are also found in some of the Hindi newspapers. Number three, where you are reported in text that the camera persons are beaten up and their cameras are snatched. I'll start with number three. There's nothing for me to defend on this, because end of the day they are the messengers. End of the day they are shooting what they are supposed to shoot. No matter whether they are shooting selectively or they are shooting both sides, they are doing their job. There's no reason for the police to get provoked whatsoever. But regarding the imagery 2 and first, I have a feeling that you always get a selective, imagery, because end of the day what comes to you is through the lens of the guys who are shooting it. I'm not very sure they represent the complete picture or not, because as I said, I was not on the ground zero.
All right, I take your point, Mr.
Having said that,
the point I want to underline for the audience is that you do not defend the way the police allegedly, and I'm using that word purposely because you're sounding skeptical, allegedly attacked journalists. You do not defend it. I'm glad to hear that, sir.
No, I don't.
I would like you to have been more critical of it. Not defending it is a rather mild form of distancing yourself. I'd like to have heard you outspokenly say the police behaved reprehensibly, but it's your right not to choose to say it. I'm going to quote to you, Sanjay Hegde, as a lawyer, what Dipendra Pathak, the Delhi police spokesman, has said. And these are his words. Inappropriate and unprofessional action on the part of certain policemen who were on law and order duty will be inquired into and strict action taken if anyone is found guilty. As a lawyer who's actually seen these scenes happen before, because after all it happened last year as well when the police beat up journalists, is Mr. Pathak's response adequate, or does it sound from his phraseology if he's sidestepping the matter?
Well, it sounds to me that he's making the appropriate noises, but he's hoping that it will not be held against him or the policeman in the future. You must also remember, you referred to what happened last year. It was the same DCP who was then on duty in and around the Patiala House area. He has been shifted to North Campus, and this is the second time. You know, the first time can be happenstance. The second time, they say coincidence. Do you want a third time to genuinely certify it to be enemy action? This is just not on. If you want to send a message that the policemen stand for the law, please take action against policemen who don't stand by the law and who are on the side of the perpetrators.
Sandeep Singh, in part one, you equated the behavior of the ABVP with the left. You said that the left had set the precedent, the ABVP was emulating them. Now I'm questioning you not about the differences between the ABVP and the left, who are both students. I'm questioning you about the police and the pictures we've seen in papers, the accounts we've got in newspapers about how they punched, slapped, beat up journalists. In your eyes, was that understandable or excusable, or was it unforgivable and reprehensible?
Well, I'll answer it in slightly different way. In my experience, police has behaved the way they have always behaved. It is just that this time the tables have turned. It's the ABVP is not at the receiving end, it's the left which is at the receiving end. And that's why there's so much of noise. Otherwise, police has always behaved like this. In the future, they will keep behaving.
But does that
like
mean
this
the police behavior is acceptable because it's always been like this?
Yeah, because I think police has their own way of managing it. So I've not been in police, so I was not there at the ground zero, so I won't blame the police. Because they keep standing. I read, as per media reports, when Tariq Fateh was heckled last week, police didn't do, though they were present there.
Is this an acceptable way of managing things just because it's the only way they've been doing it up till now? That's my question. Is it acceptable, or does it need to change and change immediately?
No, it is not acceptable way of doing it.
I wish you'd said that up front and forthright. So there is need for the police to change.
We don't have to get the bigger picture. We wouldn't get the bigger picture otherwise.
The bigger picture is simply to create a tit-for-tat situation so that you can make your point that everyone is treated this way by the police. But the point I want from you is that the police must stop treating people this way. Do you agree with that? They must stop treating people this way.
Oh, yes. No, police must do its duty always.
Can I just say something?
I'm going to stop you there because I want to come to other issues. I want to broaden this in the remaining 3-4 minutes we've got left, and we don't have much time. What happened at Ramjas is not new. We saw it last year at JNU. We saw it at Hyderabad University. Many people believe that this sorry situation reflects a wider problem about tolerance, about free speech, about student behavior. How should it be tackled?
Let me take it within first the ambit of the university. If the university is the place for plurality, certain amount of disorder has to be allowed. But the disorder has to focus around debate and not violence. Two, you don't condone violence by creating a caste system, saying it's bad to hit the press, but it's good to beat the students. It doesn't work that way. Violence is violence. Third, I think students themselves should be quite responsible of disowning violence. That statement has to come from both sides.
Right.
If you see what's happening here, their languages of hypocrisy and prevarication, whether it's the cop or the policeman, and also the student. And I find that distressing.
But there's an important thing you said. There is also an onus on students to disown violence. They must distance themselves from it. In other words, they must stand up and be counted. They will not accept violence.
And not only that, if you look at the way you ask questions, you almost require an act of dentistry for making them admit that they're responsible. And that is sad.
Sakib Bhavna, let me put this to you. No, I'll come to you in a moment's time, Shaila. You have to wait your turn, please. This is not times now. Sakib Bhavna, it's quite clear that the press is not with you. And I presume, but I could be wrong, that public opinion in India is not with you. Because they may agree with the fact that the views you find offensive are offensive, but taking the law into your hands is something they would not condone. I say that today, you and the ABVP are alone. Does that matter to you, or don't you care?
See, Mr. Thapar, I'd just like to ask you first, how do you presume that on 21st to 22nd, the violence that happened outside Ramjas was done by ABVP cadres? How do you presume that these bunch of outsiders who came all the way from JNU to Delhi University, they did not do violence? If you open the Hindu newspaper of today, you will see the picture of Delhi State President of SFI beating a student of Ramjas College, a third-year registered student of Ramjas College. And the guy beating him has come to your channel multiple times. His name is Prashant Mukherjee. He is the Delhi State President of SFI. And you are blaming us. The media, I am very surprised to see and very shocked to see that the Hindu has published, has depicted Prashant Mukherjee as an ABVP activist and saying ABVP is beating people. You see today's Hindu, please, I request you.
Okay, Mr. Bahuguna, I note the point you're saying that you aren't villains, you've actually been treated villainously.
We are being treated villain in this propaganda politics. It is all propaganda.
It's only fair that you should make that point, although it goes against the grain not just of the discussion and the evidence in the papers, but it's fair that you should make that point, that you have been treated villainously. You're not a villain. I'm going to put the last question to you, Shaila, but you have to answer very quickly. Most people, with the honourable exception of Sakit Bahuguna and his colleagues, would agree that the ABVP has behaved badly. Let me ask you whether there's also a measure of responsibility on your side to modulate the expression of your views so that you avoid confrontation rather than provoke it. I'll be honest, sometimes the left goes out of its way to express itself in such a manner that you provoke a fight to attract attention. I'm asking you whether there's an onus of responsibility to modulate your own views too so that you don't provoke. Express, but don't provoke.
Politically, it is always a good strategy to remain in moderation, show respect, express ideas, nuance them.
But do you follow that wisdom?
That is something we have always argued for.
But do you follow it? Arguing for it is one thing. Do you follow it?
No, of course we do. But the thing is,
you practice what you preach.
Of course we do. Of course we do. We rather, more than holding placards, we never do anything.
All right. I will accept what you say. You're my guest after all. The audience can judge for themselves, and I'm pretty sure that Mr. Bahuguna, even though he's not on screen, is furiously shaking his head to say you're wrong. But
on
you have
Facebook,
a right.
They are owning up to the violence.
You have a right
on
to
Facebook,
present your case as you want. You have a right to present your case as you want. I, as your host, will not say you're lying. That would be rude.
Check their Facebook accounts.
And
they are owning the violence. And they are owning up to the violence. They are flaunting it.
All my guests for joining me. This has been a very sorry, depressing discussion, one that I wish we didn't have to have, because I wish the events that provoked it never happened. You have been thanked for watching. Goodbye. Good night.